Hello, Landman fans. The moment we've all been waiting for is finally here, the Season 1 finale of Landman Episode 10. After 10 intense episodes of following Tommy Norris as he navigated the dangerous world of the oil industry and his escalating conflict with the cartel, the season concludes with an unforgettable finale. From the shocking fate of Monty to the continuing symbolism of the Coyote, there's so much to dive into. And with over an hour and 20 minutes of action-packed storytelling, this episode is packed with layers of meaning, twists, and revelations. So grab your seat and let's break down all the critical details and uncover what this finale truly means. Let's get started. First, a quick note, spoilers ahead. Throughout the season, the Coyote symbolized a deeper connection to the landscape of the oil industry and the harsh world that Tommy operates in. In the penultimate episode, we saw a Coyote shot dead. This moment was both disturbing and meaningful, tying into the idea that in such a hostile environment, survival is a constant struggle. Now, in the finale, instead of showing another Coyote being shot, we saw a new Coyote standing over the carcass of the one killed earlier, a moment that Tommy witnessed. This moment, in my opinion, served as a metaphor for Tommy's own ascent to the role of president of MTEX. The dead Coyote, lying lifeless, represented Monty and symbolized his fall both from power and from life. While we didn't hear that Monty had died immediately, Tommy's reaction and the visuals told a different story. We saw a heartbreaking scene where Kami was hugging Monty in the hospital, the heart monitor flashing red as there was no heartbeat, signaling his death. His daughters were there too, distraught at his passing. In this context, the new Coyote represents Tommy's rise, but it also carries a warning. The Coyote stands alone, but the harsh truth of that world is clear: coyotes get shot. This is a direct reflection of the brutal, often fatal, nature of the oil industry. Tommy's journey has been filled with dangerous choices, and we saw in this final scene that Tommy is now in the very same position Monty was. He is at the top, but will he remain there, or will he be replaced by another, like the new Coyote standing over Monty's dead body? This is a key moment, emphasizing the fleeting nature of power in such a cutthroat industry. Tommy and Monty's storylines mirror each other. Monty tried to carve out a legacy, to be remembered, but in the end, it cost him his life. The Coyote's survival and replacement reflect that there is always someone else ready to step into that position. As Tommy said to Angela during the episode, "Men die, oil companies don't die." This phrase is crucial because it reveals the cold reality of the oil industry. Even though individuals may perish, the system remains and someone else will take their place. Tommy's battered appearance in the final scene, standing tall after everything he's been through, signals that he's about to embark on perhaps the most challenging period of his career. His choices are risky, and his environment is dangerous. He's aware of the dangers, and he even sees the parallels with Monty. But for Tommy, this world, despite its risks, is worth the gamble. After all, he's a betting man, and his future, much like the oil industry itself, is unpredictable. In this finale, the parallels between the cartel and the oil industry were brought to the forefront. One of the most important themes in the episode was the immense power that oil companies have, not just in the U.S., but globally. Oil companies have long been involved in political maneuvers, influencing relationships between countries and regions, often contributing to global instability, while simultaneously reaping massive profits. It's a double-edged sword. The very resource that powers the world also has dire consequences for the planet. However, the show also highlighted how the cartel operates in a similar manner. Both the oil industry and the cartel are all about control, power, and money. They rely on the same structures of corruption. Tommy's experience with the cartel is illustrative of this. When he was saved by Galino from HIMZ and the police chief informed Galino of their location, it became clear that the same individuals in power in the oil industry are connected to the cartel as well. In both worlds, politicians, law enforcement, and other figures of authority are intertwined, which makes it impossible to distinguish where one ends and the other begins. Both industries are driven by the same desires: wealth, control, and the need to maintain dominance. This is what Tommy realizes over the course of the season. His sense of power within the oil industry isn't unique. It mirrors the cartel structure. The fact that they operate in parallel worlds, with similar goals and tactics, shows just how entrenched these two entities are. The line between the oil barons and cartel figures becomes blurry as we realize that, ultimately, both are perpetuating the same kind of corruption. A perfect example of this was Tommy's interaction with Galino. Tommy had always thought of himself as separate from the cartel, but after Galino saved him, it became evident that their shared history and mutual respect represented the coexistence of these two worlds. Both entities thrive when they don't interfere with each other's business. For the cartel, that means operating in remote areas where they won't be caught by law enforcement. For Tommy, it means continuing his work in a landscape where corruption is so deeply entrenched that he can't escape it. Galino's decision to save Tommy wasn't just out of goodwill, it was strategic. He knew that Tommy had an understanding of the power dynamics at play, and their relationship was important in maintaining the delicate balance between the oil industry and the cartel. It was a reminder that both industries rely on each other's success, even if they don't always acknowledge it. In the end, the finale of Landman leaves us with a lot to think about. The rise and fall of Monty, the symbolism of the Coyote, and the parallels between the oil industry and the cartel all come together to paint a picture of a world where power is fleeting and survival comes at a high cost. Tommy's journey is far from over, and as the new Coyote stands in the place of the old, we are reminded that in both the cartel and the oil industry, positions are always filled and someone else is always ready to take over. Will Tommy be able to survive this ruthless world, or will he become just another casualty, replaced by someone else? Only time will tell. Jimenez was a man who craved power, someone who wanted to make a bold statement. His hunger for control and dominance threatened to disrupt the entire operation. His actions, if unchecked, could have caused massive repercussions, not only for him but for everyone involved in the business. This theme of power struggles within the world of Landman is pivotal, and it plays a critical role in the finale. Jimenez's drive was dangerous, and it set the stage for the intense confrontations we saw unfold. Over the past few weeks, I've been pretty critical of Angela and Aynsley, and yes, they did have that odd and out-of-place scene with the old folks and the dancers in this episode. But when it came to the finale, I actually found myself understanding their characters a lot more. Their role in the show became clearer. Angela and Aynsley represent the family side of the world in which Tommy works, especially Angela, who's constantly worrying about Tommy and his safety. It's something I hadn't fully considered until this moment, the toll it takes on loved ones when someone is so deeply involved in such a dangerous and morally complex industry. In a pivotal moment, we see Angela break down in the kitchen, overcome with worry about Tommy, unsure of where he is and what condition he might be in. Watching this, it suddenly made sense to me. Angela's role in Tommy's life is so much more than I initially thought. Despite some of her scenes feeling like filler, her emotional breakdown in the finale grounded her character. It wasn't just about her being worried for Tommy, it was about her being part of a bigger picture, representing the people who have to live with the consequences of the chaotic world that Tommy inhabits. Tommy also shares a poignant memory of seeing Angela's face when he was kidnapped by Jimenez on the brink of death. This moment emphasized how important Angela is to him, and it added depth to her character that I hadn't appreciated until now. Earlier, I thought Angela or Aynsley might be taken by the cartel and used as leverage against Tommy. That seemed like a natural progression in the plot, and it could have worked well for the show. However, upon reflection, I realized that such a move would have steered the narrative in a completely different direction, perhaps even derailing the central themes of the show, the parallels between the oil industry and the cartel. Both worlds wield immense power and influence, and while the show might have explored Tommy going to war with the cartel, it would have overshadowed the crucial message about power, corruption, and control that we saw throughout the season. As for Aynsley, her character, unfortunately, didn't offer much to the overall narrative. She felt like a peripheral figure, and her involvement was minimal. She didn't significantly alter the course of events or influence the story in any meaningful way. If Aynsley were removed entirely from the show, I genuinely don't think it would have affected the outcome of the season finale at all. Her relationship with Ryder didn't bring much to the table either. The show could have done without her scenes, as they didn't feel like they added any real depth or consequence to the plot. Looking ahead, if there's a season 2, I see a couple of different directions it could take. With Monty's death, Tommy will likely step up as the new president of the company, and we'll probably see him trying to close the deal on the land at Wolf Camp that Cammy wanted him to secure. This is a crucial plot point that could define Tommy's future in the industry. On the other hand, Rebecca finds herself in a moral dilemma. She's now deeply involved in an industry that goes against her own values, and I suspect her character arc will explore how her mindset shifts as she grapples with the ethical implications of her choices. Cooper's character is another one to watch. In the finale, we saw him trying to build his own business empire, pulling together smaller players to create a larger, more profitable group. This is a different approach from the cutthroat tactics seen in the industry, as Cooper's focus seemed to be on improving the lives of the people he works with. His more ethical business strategy could lead to some interesting conflicts in the future, especially with his father, Tommy. Since Tommy is now the president of MTEX and Cooper has his sights set on Wolf Camp Shale, the land Tommy is negotiating for, we could see father and son clash over this key piece of land. That's a potential storyline that could provide plenty of drama in the next season. Now, looking at the finale itself, I thought it was a really strong episode. It brought the season full circle, starting just as it began, with Tommy being interrogated by Jimenez, his head covered by a bag. This bookend brought a satisfying symmetry to the show's structure. Similarly, the way Jimenez was killed mirrored the earlier death of the person watching over Tommy. Galino killing Jimenez in the same brutal fashion was poetic in a way, a fitting end to a character driven by greed and power. The finale itself was about an hour and 20 minutes long, and while it was solid, I felt that some parts of it could have been trimmed down. One particular area that felt overly drawn out was Ariana's mourning of her husband. While it was an important moment for her character, the scenes lingered just a bit too long. It only picked up pace when Cooper returned and they began processing their grief together. Without him, those moments felt like they dragged on, and they didn't add enough to justify their length. Similarly, the scenes with Aynsley and Ryder contributed little to the overall narrative. Their storyline felt like filler, and I could have done without it entirely. Cooper and Ariana, who were such central characters early on, didn't get much screen time in the finale. Aside from Cooper supporting Ariana during her grief, their roles were quite minimal. This was surprising, as I expected more development for them, especially given how important they were in the first half of the season. I would have liked to see more of them, as it felt like a missed opportunity to explore their characters further in the context of the finale. One of the major themes in this episode was death. Tommy's solitude in his car, reflecting on the loss of those around him, added a somber tone to the finale. This was the most vulnerable and introspective we've seen Tommy throughout the entire show, and it was a striking moment. Billy Bob Thornton's performance in this episode was exceptional. His portrayal of Tommy during the torture scenes was harrowing and intense, making for some of the most brutal moments of the series. The hammer, chains, and nails, everything about the torture was horrific, and it really drove home the gravity of Tommy's situation. It's a shame that Jon Hamm won't be returning to the show. Monty was such a well-developed character, and Hamm did an incredible job bringing him to life. However, it did feel fitting for Monty to meet his end in the way he did, given the earlier focus on his indifference to the future. Monty's lack of concern for the legacy he would leave behind ultimately led to his downfall. Overall, I'd say Landman is a show well worth watching. The penultimate episode was probably the weakest of the season, but the finale delivered on nearly every front. Taylor Sheridan has once again proven his skill as a storyteller, and I'm excited to see where the show will go from here. I'm hoping for a season 2, and I'm eager to see how the story unfolds. So there you have it, Landman episode 10, Ending Explained. This finale really tied everything together, didn't it? From the shocking twists to the unexpected resolutions, it left us with so much to unpack. Personally, I thought it was a fitting conclusion to the season, but I'm curious to hear what you all think. Did you see the ending coming, or were you just as surprised as I was? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I always love hearing your theories and reactions. As always, thanks for tuning in to my breakdowns and discussions. Your support means the world to me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future content. I've got more exciting videos on the way, so I'll see you in the next one. Take care.